This just makes my entire day. I'm so happy, man. Just like seeing this announcement of a season 3 of Mushoku Tensei is the perfect way to wrap up just a almost perfect season of Mushoku Tensei. Now, let's talk about that. So, with this announcement, obviously, it doesn't give us a date. We don't have a date when Season 3 is going to air. For all we know, Season 3 might not even come out in 2025 next year. It could come out in, like, 2026, for all we know. But the fact that we got an announcement at the end of the season, it's good news, because that means that fans won't have to be, twiddling with their fingers, wondering, is there ever going to be a continuation? Now, obviously, for a very long time now, we have known since the very beginning, the early stages of Season 1 of Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation, that the staff or the team that's worked at Studio Bind has said they wanted to basically adapt the entire series. We know this. This is definitely something that's been said, but obviously, that was a long time ago. That was years ago, and things change. As years continue to go on by, and as there's restructuring and potentially new members within the studio, and they lose members within the studio, obviously, there can be plan shifts, like, maybe their end goal is no longer the same. But the fact that they basically straight up said, yeah, we're making Season 3, makes me incredibly happy. Just honestly amazing news. And I wanted to talk about this before I went any further about the final episode of Season 2, because Season 3 announcement, honestly, I was worried we were not going to get one, but obviously we did get one, and that just, turns a episode that was already, like, basically perfection into even, like, super perfection. That doesn't exist, but you get my point. But okay, let's dive headfirst into the last episode. And honestly, it makes me very sad that this is the last episode of Mushoku Tensei for a while, because as I said just literally a minute ago, we don't know when it's going to return. It could return maybe at the beginning of next year. I doubt that, obviously, but it could return basically in spring or winter of next year. It could theoretically return at the end of next year, or maybe we'll have to wait till 2026. And, because of that, it's sad that this is our farewell to the series for a while. This is the last time we're going to get to see these characters, probably for a good year or so, and there's just been so much that's happened, and this episode alone really just sets up so much going forward, and it feels just like an epilogue. Like, let's just dive headfirst into that. Like, obviously, there's so much more to the story. There is definitely a lot of unanswered questions. We know this. Yeah, anyone that's even an anime only knows that there's just so much still left to be done. But at the end of the day, when you take a hard look at just, like, this episode, okay, and the structure of this season and everything, like the main core theme, it concluded what it set out to do with Season 2 in such a way to where Rudy completely fixed and healed himself, and he is in a perfect situation to where it's like he's living the best life that he possibly can. And let's explain that. So for one, obviously, Season 2 began with Rudy feeling alone. He was isolated, he had anxiety, he didn't have anybody that he could rely on anymore because he was left high and dry by Eris, and he had ED. And thanks to his connections and finding, like, Slyphy, for instance, eventually he found his childhood friend. He has married her, he did the deed with her, and, they have a kid together. We literally see that in this episode. They straight up have a kid together. And it's just interesting where he started at the beginning of Season 2 and where he ends Season 2 off. It's so beautiful. It basically showcases that his problems were fixed, they weren't permanent, and he now is in a situation where he has a family, and a family that he wants to protect. And it feels like an epilogue. Like I said, I know that there's more content. Anyone can see there's more content, but, like, you're not going to tell me that, like, in a normal circumstance of anime and manga and light novels, this type of content that we got for this episode is just, it feels like the end. It feels like the finale of a story, because it's like the main character gets the wife, he gets another wife, he has a child, just everything is good. He got his mother back, she, even if she's not properly in the right mind anymore, she's lost all her memories, she's back, all the major plot lines have been kind of settled. Like, let's think about this. Like, the beginning of the story, what really set everything really into motion was, the whole teleportation incident, where everybody got teleported around the world, and because of that, Rudy was trying to find others, or, Paul was trying to find others, and Rudy eventually tried to find Zenith and everyone else, and, that objective is finally over. Like, what has taken basically since the beginning of Season 1's content, like episode 9 or 10, has now been officially concluded with the end of Season 2. And it's just wild, the journey of that. Like, this is truly the ending of that major story arc that's been ongoing since Season 1. And like I said, this straight up does feel like an epilogue. Like, this is literally what I would see at the end of a story. But obviously, there's just so much more to tell. So let's talk about that. Obviously, this episode started off with such a very heartfelt and sad moment with a lot of anxiety mixed in because Rudy thought maybe something happened to his family because he was looking around, he didn't know where they were, they didn't answer to him. He thought something happened because obviously the man god was saying he would regret for choosing to leave, Sylphie and all of them behind. And obviously he gets to see Sylphie, and by the way, can we talk about that hairstyle? Milfy. I'm gonna say it, like, straight up, like, holy crap, Sylphie's new hairstyle has done wonders for her design, and she really has just straight up become a MILF character. Thankfully, she doesn't have the cursed hairline, the hair, braid that comes down the shoulder, because if she had that, she would be a dead woman walking. Thankfully, she doesn't have that, so everything's a-okay. But getting back into the main point, though, there was a lot of anxiety and stress that Rudy clearly had, in the beginning of this episode until he saw Sylphie, but then the truth hit him, and he realized that he needed to gather everybody around to what really happened. And this is where the episode really takes a turn of just true sadness. And then, honestly, I kind of cried while watching this segment of the episode because the voice actor of Norn, oh my god. Like, I'm just gonna say, if there is anyone that got an MVP medal this week in terms of voice acting, Norn's VA really did some just grade A quality work. Like, it hit the heart, the crying, to just her emotional state of everything, to the brief moment where she was trying to blame Rudy, but then realized she couldn't. There was just so much here with the voice acting that, honestly, it's just straight up incredible. And no word I could say can really just describe how incredible the voice acting was for Norn. Like, straight up MVP. Like, if I disregard everything else, like, just MVP in terms of voice acting, just takes the cake. But let's get into what Rudy discussed and just, like, the reaction obviously everybody had and just how powerful of a scene this really is. So let's get right headfirst into it. Rudy breaks the news to everyone there that is unaware of Paul's death. And when you see Norn walk in the picture and she's like, "Where's Dad?" the reality sets into motion, because obviously everybody knows something's going on. You could tell by Sylphie's reaction in the scene. Everybody knows that, like, something bad has happened to Paul. Just, it's not being said yet until Rudy just says his piece of what really happened. And as he tells the whole story, Norn just goes into complete shock, and she just straight up bawls her eyes out. And as I said, beautiful voice acting from her character. It's great. But Rudy just pretty much says he fell short, he's sorry, and, he says that he doesn't, like, he tried his best. He believes he tried his best. But obviously, deep down, we know this because especially at the end of the episode, Rudy does have some regrets. There is regrets there to where he feels partially responsible for Paul's death. That is definitely something that is played and not fully told to the audience in this episode, but Rudy takes responsibility for everything, and he does have some form of regret that he wishes he potentially could have done something else to save Paul. But despite all this, though, Rudy takes the blunt force of the potential anger from Norn in this moment, and Norn just seeking some form of way to get rid of this sadness, she tries to yell at Rudy. I mean, this moment might anger a lot of people, and I want to take a few moments to really talk about this, because I know there's going to be those that are not going to like Norn from this episode. I know it's going to happen, and I feel like it's very important to talk about this. One thing I want to state is Norn is very young. I forget her exact age here, but she's like 10, 12, 8, 9. I don't know exactly how old she is, obviously, but she's young, okay? She's a young kid at this point in time within the story, and she literally just found out her freaking dad died, okay? Give her a break. When you're straight up, you're a young kid, and you have an idol or someone you love, like a parent, etc., and you find out they freaking die, you're gonna be emotional. You're gonna be an emotional wreck. You're gonna be seeking any way to vent this sadness and frustration, not just at other people, because you're frustrated with yourself that you weren't able to do something. And so her reaction in this moment towards Rudy is super realistic, and the fact that she was able to calm herself down, honestly, is even more surprising, because any really attached person would have been broken down for a long time, but thanks to the development she went through early on in season 2 with Rudy talking with her and all that, and the connection they kind of formed, is why she was able to overcome that so quickly. But Norn's reaction is very human, and her instantly looking at Rudy like, maybe it was his fault, but then taking a hard look at, like, his wound, like his arm, and Rudy quickly covers it and holds it, it proves that she knows that Rudy also lost things. Not just losing, obviously, a father figure like Paul, but he lost his hand. His hand trying to potentially do whatever he could. And Norn knows this, and that if Rudy couldn't do it, she obviously never would have stood a chance either. And obviously, in this fit of anger and sadness, she just cries out. And once again, shout outs to the beautiful voice acting. It is absolutely incredible. But I love this scene for Norn. But obviously, a lot of people are going to hate on her because they're going to say she's being too mean to Rudy, but her reaction is just very common. It's something that would just happen, and I think that it makes her an even better character when she's able to, kind of overcome that a little bit and still be happy with Rudy and the fact that he's still around. Then we have this whole moment where Rudy divvies out, basically, the possessions of Paul. To the sword, to the gauntlets. We just see how, like, everything is divvied out, and you see Zenith actually grabbed the gauntlets, and this is a very important moment that I think a lot of people are going to look at and be like, is she there? And obviously Lilia and everyone are wondering that as well. You have this whole little moment dedicated to it, but it's clear she's there and not there. Like, the way it looks from the entire situation is that it was more instinctual than anything else. That Zenith, if there is any part of her there, it was instinctual, and she grabbed them, and that was about it. And it's pretty sad, honestly, because it shows that Zenith is probably not fully aware of everything around her. She can't really react to the things around her properly, and so it makes you wonder if she ever does heal and she gets better, how is she going to react to finding out, her husband is gone and dead? It makes you emotional thinking about that, how she would even react to something like this. But it's a very emotional scene, just seeing the possessions of Paul divvied out to the entire family. And also, after all this is said and done, we basically have this moment to where, like, Rudy, he basically says, well, how they're going to be living from now on. For instance, like, Lilia's going to be staying with them, Zenith's going to be staying with them, and the entire family dynamic is going to be changing. And I think that this is also very important to talk about, that Zenith's situation it's quite the burden, and I do want to mention this, and I'm not trying to put Zenith down or anything, but Zenith is in a state of where she is not herself, completely lost everything, and she needs constant care and support, and that is going to be a big hassle, or just a big burden on the family. And even if they do everything they can and they ever resent Zenith or have any negative thoughts towards her, it's a big task. It's a really big task. And Zenith's help is going to be something that's always going to be needed until one day she's probably able to speak again, if that ever does happen. And that's always just a big mystery / question. And so the whole point of this entire discussion here, what makes it very fascinating, is that, there might one day be maybe some resentment or something. I doubt Rudy would have any resentment, but maybe someone will come down to resent Zenith that she's not there anymore after everything, the loss of Paul, etc. It does make you wonder. But, anyways, with all that being said and done, we move into the goodbyes of the whole party and basically saying, we can't intrude on this family gathering and meeting, and they straight up just say we're gonna, go into town and all that. It's a very beautiful farewell and party between two characters. Absolutely love this man, by the way, great character. I love how he's always there for Rudy. He's always like, just the new guy, so to speak. Always got his back, and I appreciate that. But with that being said, though, I think that we get into the Roxy segment next, which I think this is what everybody's been wanting to hear about. So Roxy officially is added to the family in this episode. Now, we know the outcome. If you've watched this episode, you know that Roxy was accepted by Slyphy, and she will become Rudy's second wife. And honestly, amazing. It's amazing. I'll talk about that in a second, but I want to talk about the drama segment of this part first, and why that this needed to happen, and I just love how it's included. Because obviously I don't know why the episode just did that, one second, but basically having Rudy here kind of confronting Slyphy about the entire situation, it's a very nice moment to kind of indicate that Rudy's not trying to run away from his problems. He's not trying to run away from, like, potentially, saying, oh, I did a mistake, I did something bad, or potentially I slept with another woman. Rudy's not trying to act like that didn't happen. He's just confronting Slyphy about it, and he is telling her just like it is. And it's a very important moment to show just what type of person Rudy is. Even if you want to view him like a scumbag or, unfaithful, whatever, the point of the matter is that Rudy did face his problems, he faced his fears, and he didn't run from them, which shows growth from the beginning of the story, because obviously he always ran from his problems and closed himself off, and that was even mentioned in this episode as well. So the fact of the matter is that, Rudy, he faced his problems and he tackled them head on, and regardless of how it turned out, he was prepared to face it. And Roxy was there beside him, and obviously Roxy has a lot of guilt. Even at the end of the episode, you could just see that Roxy is very, how can I say, guilty about the situation. She even says it, before the baby is delivered, that, she's like, I don't want to marry just yet. I don't want to take on the name, Roxy Grey Rat, because, I want to wait until you have your child, because regardless of how you feel, she's like, I still feel guilt from it. And I think this is a very powerful moment, because it shows that Roxy, she does realize what she's done. She has technically forcefully inserted herself into the family dynamic because of her own ulterior motive and what she wanted, but because of this, though, her being just so truthful about it, Slyphy accepted it with open arms, and also the reason why she was able to accept it as well so openly is because Slyphy is not a follower of Millis, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's like the god in this world and all that. But once Slyphy got to see her, Slyphy realized that Roxy's just this ordinary girl that just has a crush on Rudy, and so I feel like there was a lot of things that really built up for this. She was able to kind of accept Roxy to a degree because she's always heard about Roxy, since basically she was a child with Rudy, just playing in the fields, etc. So it's not something that necessarily came out of nowhere. She's not a random individual that just inserted herself into Rudy and Sylphie's life. She's technically always been mentioned since the very beginning. Now, obviously, people's opinions on the situation here with, Rudy's confession and all that, a lot of people are going to align with Norn. They're going to be very upset, they're going to be angry, etc., and I've already seen it. I've already seen it since literally last week. People are basically saying, like, wow, really? Rudy cheats on his wife? And yeah, he did. He was unfaithful, yeah. Like, he even admits that. He does. But obviously, at the end of the day, the customs and the way this world works is very different from how traditional society in our world works, and they're now in a official poly relationship, and regardless if you disagree with that, you don't like it, etc., that is what's happened, and Slyphy has agreed to it, Roxy has agreed to it, so it's not necessarily something that, we really should have a say in the matter. I mean, obviously, Norn, voiced her opinion. She was the voice of the audience that would probably disagree with Roxy, Rudy, and Sylphie's actions in this episode, and even then, Norn was completely shut down from it, because even though she was doing what she said to protect Slyphy or to speak out for Sylphie's behalf, at the end of the day, the main decision was on Slyphy if she wanted to be with Rudy after everything was said and done, and she still does. So because of that, regardless of how Norn feels about the situation, it is Slyphy that was the decider, and so, obviously, Roxy was welcomed into the family. Besides, obviously, Norn getting this absolute roast on Roxy. Like, holy crap, she roasted Roxy. So, let's move into the childbirth scene. So, Slyphy, this entire childbirth scene, by the way, I don't know if anyone noticed it, but it was a straight up, one-to-one, or not completely, but almost one-to-one reference to the first episode of Mushoku Tensei. FYI, if you remember, we started off the series with Mushoku Tensei episode 1 with Rudy being born, and we saw Zenith and Paul and all that, and the very sequence here with, Slyphy and then Rudy was kind of a homage to the first episode. There were some little differences, but it was pretty much the same. And I love the nod to that, showcasing that, Rudy is now in Paul's place and Slyphy is in Zenith's place and all that. And you have this new generation, this kid now that's been given birth to. I love that. I absolutely... I love this little segment. It's super sweet just to see, and, wondering exactly how Rudy's going to be a father. How is he going to really raise his child and all that, and how Slyphy is going to be as the mother. Just really great stuff overall. Then we have this final segment with Paul, and then, Rudy talking with him. It's just, yeah, man, it's some beautiful stuff. This stuff hits hard. But yeah, it's a good season, a really good season. I've absolutely loved Mushoku Tensei Season 2. It has been a non-stop joy, and obviously there's been some controversy and drama and all that, but that's just Mushoku Tensei in a nutshell. I mean, it's one of those series that just, it comes with the territory. But despite all of that, I loved it every step of the way, and I cannot wait for Season 3 to air. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I have appreciated all of you. Thank you so much. Seriously, everyone that continues to watch my videos. Hopefully you stick around and you continue to watch my other anime videos and reviews for this upcoming anime season, like Oshinoko. I believe there's this robot waifu one that came out like yesterday I still need to watch. You know, I'm going to be reviewing quite a few things, so if you are still interested and you want to follow my content, hopefully you subscribe, you leave a like on the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Be safe, stay healthy, Chibi out.